Okay. All right. So here we are on our second podcast with my partner, Jocelyn Sokol. Jocelyn, you raise your hand so they know which one's Jocelyn.
Right here.
Okay, good. And our guest today, who just happens to be a great friend of mine, David Sarnoff. And David has got a lot of titles and has done incredible things in his life. But he really, which I find so intriguing, he's an emotional intelligence coach, expert, and guru. So being an emotional intelligence expert makes you great at helping other people navigate their way through this. Now suddenly, bang, bat over the head, and Dave's given these challenges. He's the director and the head of strategic planning at Loeb Leadership, the CEO and owner of the Sarnoff Group, the former president of the Fort Lee Board of Education. More important than that, he's an unbelievable dad to his two kids, Jordan and Bella, a remarkable husband. Paige just goes on and on about him. And last but not least, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, football player in the history of Fairlawn High School. So other
Coach,
than that,
nobody's gonna believe a word I say with that introduction.
What a normal guy. So anyway, Dave, I treasure our friendship. It's changed my life tremendously. Dave and I just did a speaking engagement in Hawaii pre-coronavirus. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to turn this over to the brains of the outfit, and not Dave yet, but Jocelyn. Jocelyn?
Yeah, I mean, David, we've been, really curious and interested to hear the stories of different people and what this experience has been like for them. And Jim has led me to believe you have really had a big experience going on in your life. So do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. And I know so many people, just about everybody is going through some real challenging experiences through this pandemic, through personal issues, through professional challenges. I'm happy to share my story, but I don't think it's any greater or worse than what many others are going through. But for purposes of connecting and sharing, so people don't feel like it's just them, I'm happy to do this. I greatly appreciate Coach's introduction. I would caution the audience to modify some of those statements, although they're greatly appreciated, and I truly cherish our friendship as well. So as Coach said, I'm married and have two kids. I live in a high-rise apartment in Eastern Bergen County, and I have my elderly parents living in the same building. And my dad, they're in their mid-80s. He's going through some serious health issues. He was hospitalized twice in the past month for non-COVID related issues and health emergencies. So he's really not getting the health care he needs right now. They're in their apartment. I'm trying to do as much as I can for them. We've had a visiting nurse come and other professionals, but all things being equal, he should be in a hospital, but the doctors don't want him in the hospital. And I know that's something that many people are going through, caring for relatives and friends, going through all kinds of health illnesses and injuries and things like that. So that's been a real tough one for me, and trying to keep them calm. My mom is going through a very heightened state of anxiety and stress, and it overwhelms her at times.
Great. So Dave, one of the things that you talk a lot about in your talks is called the Amygdala Hijack, where people get overtaken by fear. And of course, and talk to us a little bit about how you've taught it, and now suddenly you're right in the midst of and swamped with amygdala connections kicking in.
Sure. So the Amygdala Hijack was coined by one of the foremost pioneers and thought leaders in emotional intelligence, Dan Goleman. and he writes extensively about it. And so what it is when a person's under stress, their heart's beating rapidly, their breathing becomes rapid, their blood pressure rises, the gland in the brain, the amygdala, starts pumping chemicals, cortisol, adrenaline. And once you reach a certain threshold, your body goes into fight, flight, or freeze. All right, it goes into a survival mode. And your ability to access your prefrontal cortex, where your reasoning and logic and rational thought is, it literally becomes physically difficult to access your logical reasoning. So once you get into amygdala hijack, you are now in fight, flight, or freeze, and you will, in many cases, act irrationally to the stress confronting you. And that's why people in road rage incidents, who are otherwise reasonable, rational people, act irrationally. They cross this threshold. You're in the amygdala now, and it's a prehistoric, primal feeling, and your ability to step back, take a deep breath, and analyze the situation becomes much more difficult. And that's through emotional intelligence coaching. We try to recognize those emotions as they're happening and avoid going over the line to amygdala hijack.
Yeah. What are the
And
tools you use?
I was just going to say, how is that knowledge and experience that you've had with exploring that helping you today?
You know, it's helping me tremendously, along with a lot of things that Coach Stroker has taught me with respect to box breathing and mindfulness and meditation. But you know, I'm challenging myself to practice what I preach, and sometimes I'm getting calls late at night that are emergency situations, and sometimes your first reaction is to act in a very emotional way or a stressed out way. And what I've been trying to do is be mindful of those feelings as they're happening. You know, in my prior career, I was a litigation attorney, and one of the good things that has come out of that experience for me, although I'm no longer practicing, was that ability to kind of step out of the emotion and the interpersonal connection to your clients, to objectively be able to view the facts, give counsel and guidance, and not be emotionally involved. That experience, along with my emotional intelligence education, has helped me to kind of separate and be more clear, see things more objectively, and try to help and support others in a better way. It doesn't mean that it doesn't impact me in other ways. I'm having difficulty sleeping. I'm waking up at 4 a.m. I do have lapses where I may lose my temper or raise my voice. But I'm more mindful of those things and recognizing them to try to prevent that from happening.
Yeah. So that you just said right there is a giant piece where you're actually able to catch yourself, where maybe in the past you would have blown, or you're actually able to create boundaries so that you actually can give yourself a chance to compartmentalize these challenges you're going through. That's that emotional intelligence. You know, in yoga, we call it breathing, creating space, but now you feel like you're a little bit more in control of the driver's seat instead of being a passenger getting driven into nowhere's land. True?
Right. And that's really well said, Coach. And there's also a sense of connection among friends and colleagues when you have this shared experience and this shared mission of us all surviving and getting through this, and social distancing and helping each other so we all get through this, and not just some, and whoever doesn't make it doesn't make it. My colleagues and I at Loeb Leadership, we recently did a survey of how remote working is impacting people in the law firm industry. And the results were really interesting, but I think they transcend all industries. And what we found was that the top 3 things that people said was impacting them was this general feeling of anxiety, especially for people under 35. their anxiety level was much higher than people over 55. And the second highest response was social isolation, this inability to have in-person contact and have, a handshake, a hug, be able to see the people in person who you're talking to. And the next one was keeping people engaged, keeping a team engaged, where we're being productive, we're interacting, but it's moving the process forward.
Yeah, great.
So, David, when you said that, box breathing and meditation that you learned from Jim is helping you, are you finding it's helpful to sort of set a time out each day to do that, separately, or is it more when you start to feel that fight or flight come in, you can take a moment and do the breathing?
Great question. I try to do it when I just have that open space. It's, I don't know what the right or wrong answer is, but for me, what I found, given the circumstances and the challenges I'm dealing with, it's very hard for me to have a structured day because, I'll plan and then I get the phone call and I got to drop everything and go. And that's just happening on a regular basis right now. So I'm just trying to do it when I have that space. I'm like, okay, you have a lull here, start breathing, because as coach taught me, if you don't practice it and you're in that moment and you're like, oh, I'm going to box breathe now, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's something that has to come naturally from your ability to practice and just make it part of you.
So my great partner Jocelyn has meshed beautifully with so many masterminds these days. They keep coming out with the same message. When this ends, and it will at some time, 5 weeks, 3 months, 2 years, but at some point it's going to end. What do you want to carry with you across the finish line and say, because of this unique environment that I was placed in, because of it, how would I like to walk out and feel that, how would I like to have learned, become more aware of, and changed as a person during this experience? So, and Jocelyn, you can rephrase that. I lost that a little.
You did okay.
Yeah, it's a really tough question, Coach, because I feel like so much is changing on a daily basis, and just where I enter a comfort zone, something unsettles me, and I'm trying to have that agile mindset and be adaptable, and just know that the only constant going forward is change.
Yeah.
Like, just accept the fact that my environment, my circumstances are going to constantly change, and I'm just going to accept that and adapt to whatever comes at me. I think some of the skills or practices that I'll take with me outside of this is prioritizing crisis. Things that used to be a 10 on my scale are now a 3, and now it's a matter of, does my dad need urgent medical care right now? Do I have time to watch a movie? Just prioritizing what's important to me in my life at that moment during the day. And what this pandemic experience has taught me is that it's completely changed for me. This sense of gratefulness and gratitude that you constantly just teach to people has been very helpful for me, as bad as it is. I have a roof, we have food, we're all together, we're healthy. I am grateful for that, and grateful that my parents are 4 floors below and not 10 miles away where they used to live, where I can't, be much harder to get to them. if they needed a crisis.
That's
So
great.
just heightened sense of gratitude and gratefulness, and also just how important empathy is, and just, globally, I think that's one of the more lacking emotional intelligence skills. And as Brene Brown says, empathy is your ability to connect to an experience within yourself, to understand what someone else is going through and connect to their pain. And if going through this pandemic doesn't heighten everybody's sense of empathy and understanding of the pain of others, then I'm not sure what will. But I will definitely be more mindful of the struggles and challenges of what others have gone through to still be able to function and carry on.
That's
Yeah, that's
beautifully
great.
said. Jocelyn, do you have one last question? I have one more. Or do you want to finish it?
No,
We're-
I'll go, and then you can finish it. Just sort of taking us out of this for a second. What's one really, sort of just fun, frivolous thing you're looking forward to doing that you're not able to do now once the world returns?
Well, yeah, I'm a real people person. Like Coach. Coach is a hugger. Like, when I meet my friends, I shake hands and we give each other a big hug. It's funny. Like, I miss that.
Yeah.
I just miss that personal engagement. I love to network and meet wide variety of people and hear their stories, and go to a lot of events, and was scheduled to travel around the country this spring, and I'm hoping, I'd love to be able to get back to that and really connect with people in person again.
Great. I'd like to finish up with, well, just because this is my own personal interest. Dave, you work at one of the largest, most successful leadership training groups in the United States. Loeb Leadership dominates, you're the best. So you teach leadership. Now we have people in the midst of crisis, in big time situations, whether they're moms, friends, corporate leaders, whether they're coaches, whatever they are, we're all leaders because people are watching us. I don't care where you are. So, in a nutshell, three things: great leaders in this challenging time, they symbolize three qualities that you think would now say, yep, that's what you need to be right now: leadership.
Another great question, Coach, and I'm sure my colleagues at Loeb Leadership will greatly appreciate that plug you gave us. So for me, what's so important about leaders in times of crisis is how you show up. What level of self-awareness do you have? Are you just talking about me, what I'm going through and how bad it is? Or are you a you person? What can I do for you? How are you supporting your team and the people you're leading? Active listening. Social isolation and general anxiety is one of the top two impacting workers right now. Leaders have to engage them and just listen. Tell me what you're going through. Actively listen, being present, looking into the screen, not checking your phone while you're doing it, and letting people share their experiences and demonstrating that empathy. So self-awareness, how you show up, engage and connect with your teams, and then ask, how can I support you? Be a servant leader. Like, we talk Simon Sinek a lot, leaders eat last. Especially in times of crisis, how you respond, how organizations respond to their workforce is going to be remembered for a very long time after we come out of this. So are you practicing a shared sacrifice culture where we're all taking a hit so we can stay together? Or are you just slashing and cutting to keep it some for yourself? I think leaders face very difficult choices here. We talk about shared mission culture a lot, Coach, and I love the story about John F. Kennedy when, after he becomes president, He wants to visit NASA headquarters during the space race with the Soviets, and they take him there, and he walks in the door, and there's a custodian sweeping the floor. And the president walks up to him and says, "Hey, I'm Jack Kennedy. What do you do for NASA?" And the custodian stops sweeping, and he says, "Mr. President, I help put astronauts on the moon." And that's that shared mission. He believes I do my job, the engineers do their job, the astronauts do their job. We all go to the moon. And I think leaders in this crisis need to understand how they rally their teams to be a shared mission culture is going to help them get out of it when we recover, as opposed to, "I'm sorry, you all got to go." And then afterwards saying, "Oh, come back." I think leaders really have to be mindful how they respond in this crisis.
It's great. Beautiful. Well, Dave, this has been a tremendous pleasure. You really have gotten the ABCs down in life. You're A, articulate, B, brave, C, caring, D, freaking determined, E, empathetic, and F, a freaking leader in your way. You really are. So thanks for being who you are, being a great friend. Thanks for helping Jocelyn and I create this podcast. I think it's one that, to me, this is a knockout because you came on. Jocelyn?
Well, Coach, you're very kind, and I learned much more from you than I think you would ever learn from me. And you're somebody who models the way and shows people how it's done. And Jocelyn, we've gotten to spend time together and interact, and you really get the essence of what makes people tick. And you guys are doing an amazing job, a great service, helping people who are really struggling out there.
Thanks, Dave.
Well, thank you so much, David. And we send, love to you and your family.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So I hope that
there's the bell.
Sorry, there's the phone that I shouldn't have on.
All right, guys, deep breath.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Stay safe.
All right?
Stay home. Be well.
Thank you too.
Thanks, guys. Love you all.